Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Transforming Inner Pain mini-series, where we are having candid conversations with very special guests of mine, where you are going to hear stories that are inspiring, that offer hope, healing, and how they have overcome adversity in their life. So today, it is an honor to have Laura here with us to share her story about being a mom and experiencing several miscarriages over the years in pursuit of completing her family. So Laura is a multi-passionate entrepreneur, empowerment coach, speaker, and author of Unipreneur, and a few others, I do believe. She helps people discover and nurture their own unique divine gifts with passion and purpose. So welcome, Laura.
Hello, thank you, Kayla. I'm glad to meet your audience. All my life, I knew that I wanted to be a mom, and it's interesting I found a paper that I had written in fifth grade that I stated I wanted to get married and have 6 kids when it was my life dreams. And it's like, holy cow! Because I am a mother. I've been married 40 years to my husband, and we have 6 kids. But along the way, it was a difficult journey to get those 6 here. And I had several miscarriages, early miscarriages. It was one of those things where I would find out I was pregnant the next week I wasn't.
Aww.
And it happened enough to, I actually had lost more children than I have. But there came a point where I didn't tell anybody when I'd have them. I wouldn't announce that I was pregnant, and
Sure.
so I had, our first 2 boys were my first one I lost, but the first, I hadn't even announced that I was pregnant yet when I found that I wasn't. But we had our first boy, and then we had our second boy 18 months later, and they were perfectly healthy. I had a miscarriage, maybe even 2 short ones before our third son came. And then I lost, I don't remember how far along I was, because back in those days, you didn't have a sonogram or something routinely.
Sure.
And, but it was enough to know it was a boy. And I was devastated, and I thought, I was having depression and just having trouble coming out of that. So there wasn't a lot of support systems or anything back then. And it would have been in the 80s. And my husband stepped up and he says, let's just go away for a week. So my mother took care of our 3 boys, and my husband and I just went off for a week and spent time together, and I did some soul searching, and we were both, Christian. And so we just visited some historical sites, and just, it was wonderful. It was absolutely wonderful. And during that time, and I can't even remember where it was specifically, but we were in like an old chapel, like an old historical chapel thing. And
those are always my favorite.
Yeah. Oh, I don't even remember where it was, but it was, because we were both history buffs, and so we go see different things. But anyway, so I remember sitting in this chapel, and it was like I was just pouring my heart out to God. And am I supposed to have 6 children? Because I have these 3, and I should be satisfied, but I'm not. I knew there was more. And I had this conversation with God, and it was wonderful. It was very healing. And I was told, what would you love? And I said, well, actually, I'd love to have a daughter, because I thought I was going to have all sons, and because I 3 real ones, or 3 live ones, and then the one that had passed, and so, or I'd lost. So anyway, I was promised a daughter, and I said, you can have a daughter. And I said, now we can take 2. You can have daughters. You can have daughters. It's like, oh, and so I went back completely renewed, and then I got pregnant, had our first daughter, and then I had more miscarriages between her, and I had another girl after that. So it was like, oh, I got my 2. And but they were short, first trimester, but then I had, after our 5th child was born, I was 30, and I had always thought I'd have my kids within a certain period of time.
Sure.
And I had the 5 during 10-year period, and then nothing, for a while, except early miscarriages. Well, anyway, I finally had a successful pregnancy, and I got farther along in the pregnancy, and I realized that with most of my pregnancies that I lost, I didn't get morning sickness at all. I didn't get to that stage where I had morning sickness. Sure. And so when I looked back, the ones even the one that I'd lost when I knew it was a boy, I hadn't had morning sickness. So I got morning sickness, and I was, yay, I'm sick, But I had actually, I don't want to go into the details, but I had a very traumatic experience happen. It was an emotional experience.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I lost that son. And it was, again, devastating because
Sure.
I knew it was a son and I knew it was, we named him. And, but another thing I want to mention here is back then, I don't know what they do now, but back then I didn't give the choice to see him or anything at that time. They incinerated him as medical waste, and that was devastating to
Oh
me.
my gosh, I can
And
imagine.
so I didn't even know it till after the fact because they were working on me. I was hemorrhaging. They were working on me, and frankly, they
Sure.
were just so concerned. My husband was so concerned about me that what happened. And so um, I again was getting depressed, over that. But I realized, okay, there was a reason that happened. There was a physical reason that happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so, actually, less than a year later, I got pregnant again, and this time it was with twins.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought I almost overshot having six. It's like, oh, whoa! I thought I was going to have six. I'm going to have seven. Bingo. um, but then it was actually December, right before it was before Christmas. I live in Western New York, and it had iced over, and I didn't realize it. I went
Mm-hmm.
outside to go to choir at church, and our front steps were icy, and I slipped down the steps, bam.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew immediately something had happened.
Yeah.
They took me to the hospital. My husband took me to the hospital, and they did a sonogram. And interestingly enough, okay, they were boys. We knew that, but um, they were fraternal twins, and everything was separate. I had a separate placenta, separate sac, everything completely separate. And so I did go to the hospital. I ended up the next day lost one of the boys,
Mm-hmm.
and they kept me in for a few days, and then they kept me into, I think it was 5 or 6 days, because they were letting me heal because
Sure.
the other placenta had come detached,
Mm-hmm.
a little, just a corner of it. So they let me come home for Christmas Eve because that's when our family celebrated. And
Mm-hmm.
so I got to come in for Christmas Eve, and I laid on the couch. I stayed on the couch the whole time, and everything seemed like it was going to be fine. And then on December 28th, which happened to be the 13th birthday of our second son, I
Oh.
started hemorrhaging. And so they took me back into the hospital, and I lost that son. And
Oh.
that one, I got to hold him in my hands, but then I started hemorrhaging, and they worried about me passing.
Mm-hmm.
So they willed me away, and I never saw him again. And again, all three of them were incinerated without,
Oh.
they just did it as medical waste. They were considered medical waste. Devastating, absolutely devastating. Well, this time I went in a really depressive tailspin, and one of the things I want to mention, I have like a list of ways that I went through
Mm-hmm.
the process, but one of the big things there is that, what, I'm going to go ahead and go into it.
Sure.
The first one I have here, because it fits of how I got through this. The first one is to let yourself grieve. Let
Mm-hmm.
yourself grieve. Don't hold it back. I know with the earlier ones, I'm a private person with certain things, and it was
Mm-hmm.
like I didn't want anybody to know about it. Well, when you're that far along, people know.
Absolutely.
And so whatever your grief process looks like to you, allow yourself to do that. And for me, it came in waves. It was, even now, I mean, that's been 30 something years, and it's been that long, almost 30 years, 20, more like 25 years. It still, I have waves of grief over
Mm-hmm.
one, and I wonder what would have happened if I had those boys, but
Mm-hmm.
um, I needed to allow myself to grieve. And the other thing is to not rush it, let it happen. And whatever it looks like for you, it's okay. Don't let
Yes.
somebody say, "Oh, you should be over that by now,"
Mm-hmm.
or don't let somebody make you into a victim and say, "Oh, well, you're not grieving enough." It's personal. Let it
Mm-hmm.
happen.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing is to have a memorial service. That was very helpful to me. When I found out that each time when I found out that I didn't, that they took my child
Mm-hmm.
and incinerated them as medical waste, it was devastating to me. So I
Yeah.
actually,
Well, it was
at the
probably
end of all
traumatic
that,
too. I mean, if you think about it.
yes, it was, and we weren't even given a choice. I don't know if it's from where we live. I don't know. I wasn't given a choice. And I understand, the good side of me says, I understand they were trying to save me. That's where their energy was put. But it's like afterwards, it was, anyway, that was devastating.
Well,
So
yeah.
I finally held a memorial service, and we named our three sons, and we had a memorial service for them. That was very, very healing for me. That was a pride. We didn't have anybody else. It was just our family.
Well, no doubt, because a memorial service can help give you some closure, but it's going to help you on your healing journey. And not to say that the miscarriages and their loss was any less real than what it was, but it helps put things more in a perspective for you, and helps your brain process it differently when you're able to grieve and say what you need to say, and just go through that process of having a little bit of closure, and knowing that that they're okay, that they went to heaven. It's just a different experience when you're able to have that little bit of closure because of the experiences that you had, and them being, whisked away and you never got to see them again. I mean, that for me as a mom, I mean, I've never gone through miscarriage, but if something like that would have ever happened to me and I wasn't able to see my child, I would be devastated. It would be very traumatic for me. So I no doubt can only imagine what you went through, all the times that you went through it, and just that experience. I mean, and honestly, my heart goes out to you, because I can't even imagine how that really must have felt for you. And it could be, because it was, years ago, and that was just part of their protocol. I don't know, but you weren't given that opportunity to welcome the child per se, and you weren't able to also say goodbye either. And that's really part of, when you're going through that grieving process. You need that. And as a mother, you want that experience, and it's a personal experience to have.
And the other part of that is to let my husband grieve, because he's one of those, men don't cry kind of guys, and
tough guy.
Actually, as a matter of fact, the only time I've ever seen him cry was when our first daughter was born. He was there. He got to help deliver her, and he had one tear stream down his cheek. Oh, it was so sweet.
That's so special.
But anyway, he needed to grieve too.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And the kids, because we had 5 kids at the time. Now the littlest one, didn't quite understand what was going on. Why didn't the baby come home? But the older kids, they needed to grieve too. And so doing that as a family was very healing for us. The next one I have, the third one I have, is forgive rather than blame. And that means myself and others. With I part of me would say there was 2 things. Well, part of them was, what's wrong with my body? It's what did I do? And then with the early ones, and then when I fell down the steps, that one was, well, let me back up. The one where I had a traumatic experience happen with another person that caused all the stress. There was a little while where I blamed that other person, and I said, if you hadn't have done that to me and my kid, that wouldn't have happened. They harmed one of our children.
Sure.
And it was like, so I blamed them, and I had to forgive them, and I also had to forgive myself. Because none of us are perfect, and yes, I got angry at that person for hurting my child, but I had to let that go and realize, they didn't, they hurt my little other child, not the one I was carrying. That was a byproduct of that. And the other thing later was with the other ones, not to blame myself for, because I kept saying, why did I go down? Why didn't I check the steps before and find out they were icy? Why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do that? I had to let go of that. That it doesn't matter why I didn't. So I didn't do it on purpose. I didn't fall on purpose. Let it go. But it was a process. And then the fourth one is to be this was big. Be grateful for what you have, but don't feel guilty if you're not content with what you have. Because there was a big part of me that said, at that point, it was like, I have 5 kids. I have nothing to complain about. There are people who can't have children. There are people who have lost multiple children. I have nothing to complain about. And yet I felt this incompletion. Being a spiritual person, I felt there was still a 6th one up there saying, Mom, let me come down. And so there was that guilt feeling that I had to let go of, that yes, I have 5 healthy children, and yes, I'm grateful for that, but it's okay that I want number 6 to come join our family.
Yeah. And I think, even for myself, like I can relate on a different side of that, because with me struggling with infertility, and there's the misconception that just because you got pregnant and you have a child, people magically seem to think that your infertility is just poof and it's gone. And that's really not the case. So my son, at the time of this recording, my son is 6, and we've been trying for baby number 2, and obviously it has not happened yet. And so on the other side of that, even for me, it's like I'm very grateful, and I know that I'm blessed that I received God's grace and I have my child. And it was a long 9-year journey to my parenthood. But there's still the pain that comes through when family members or friends are pregnant, and I'm like, I wish that so much for myself. And it's not that I'm not happy for them, because I am, but there's still the pain and the still healing that needs to come through. And for me, I had to go through that. I had to go through the process of being, how did you phrase it? How did you word that again? So say it again.
I don't remember.
So it was around being okay with being grateful and blessed of what you have, but also knowing that you can feel where you're not. How did you phrase it? How you're not.
I don't remember how it's.
With being content.
My sentence I have written down is: be grateful for what you have, but don't feel guilty if you want more.
Yes.
We are meant to grow and expand.
Yes.
It's okay to be discontent with what.
Yes. Discontentment.
It's okay to want more.
Yes, that's where I was going with that.
Okay.
So that's like where I'm at right now. It's like, there's still a little bit of that discontentment with me. And it's like, I know, like, I'm putting my efforts, I'm putting in my prayers that, at some point this is going to happen. But I also know that, it's okay. I don't need to feel shame about the discontentment or the position that I'm in or the things that I'm experiencing. And it's not that I'm blaming anyone else or that I'm, jealous of anyone else or things like that. But there's still that piece of things that I'm working through. Right. And I think that's kind of important to know as you're going through, whether you're going through an infertility experience or you're going through your grieving, and that you're meant for more, and you're working towards that, and you're putting your hope in the Lord that a miracle is going to happen. There's going to be that period of maybe feeling a little bit of discontentment, and don't feel bad about it. It's not that you are ungrateful for what you've got or what you've experienced or what you have. You just know it's almost like you're going through like the breakdown before you come through with your breakthrough, right? Like you go through this period where it's kind of like you're in this limbo transition a little bit. And that's that's where I can speak up from my side of things with the infertility journey and that whole experience. But I wanted to interject and at least share that for anyone that was going through and feeling that little bit of that discontentment, and knowing that they want more, they desire more, they know that they're meant for more, and they're waiting for that miracle. They're waiting for that opportunity to come through.
Yes. And I think the contentment,
Mm-hmm.
for me, it's fleeting. I mean, I'm grateful for what I have, but I think if we stay content
Mm-hmm.
with what we have and don't look for more, then we just stay where we are. And I personally always want to continually learn and grow and connect and serve and become a bigger, better me. And
Mm-hmm.
if I become completely content with where I am, that's where I'm going to stay.
Yeah, you're going to be complacent.
Yeah,
you're not going to experience that growth.
Yes, exactly. So for me, I chose not to listen to the people that said, "Oh, be content with 5. You don't need 6. Just deal with it. You got 5. You're okay." And it's like, but my heart tells me that,
Yes, I understand from a different side, because I often hear, "You got more than you can handle right now with 1. What do you need another one for?" And I'm like, first off, that's really none of your business. And secondly, it's my choice and my decision. And that is something that I desire. Whether or not it will happen, well, that's up to the guy upstairs to be able to make that decision. But it's not something that's, I'm just going to be like, "Oh yeah, well, I got 1. That's all. And just, sweep it under the rug and keep moving forward." It's like, no, I desire to have more children. I wanted to have a large family. I always wanted to have a large family. So, while I'm healthy and while I'm young enough, yes, I'm going to continue to keep trying and keep praying and hoping that I will receive another miracle. And if I do, I do. And if I don't, I don't. I mean, it's, it kind of, it is what it is, but I'm not letting the opinions of others about how they think I should run my life and how many children I should have stop me from doing what I feel like I need to do. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Perfect answer. My number 5 on here is to get support.
Mm-hmm.
And this group actually is really good. Kayla, you have everything you do is very supportive.
Oh,
and you bring people, you build a good support system for others. It's not just you're wonderful, but you allow a platform in which we can have support. Mm-hmm. And so that's really important. And it's important to, it may be friends, it may be family, it may be complete strangers. Find what works for you. Whatever your suffering is, and it doesn't have to be what I experienced, but whatever it is, find someone or a group to help support you in a positive way and to help you get through this. And the other flip side of that is if you want to be alone, allow yourself to be alone. Yes. Because there are some people that there were things I didn't want to share. And frankly, I shared more on here than I have with some of my family members, because
it's different. It's not your family. And I think we keep our family, we keep them at arm's length, and we only share so much information. But at the same time, it's not that we aren't open with them, but we close off parts of ourselves almost in a way to kind of protect them or to protect ourselves from maybe their opinions or their judgment or whatever they may dish out.
Well, and also for me, part of my
worrying
is, and part of mine was there are certain members of my family I haven't shared things with because I think they might try to make me into a victim, like, oh, you poor thing. I didn't want sympathy. I just wanted to let myself heal. Mm-hmm. And that's a big thing. Yourself. Yeah. So whatever your support group is, have it be a healthy support system.
Absolutely. And don't feel bad about taking time for yourself. I know grief is a fickle thing. It's a journey, it's a process, and everyone's experience is different. And when I lost my dad, there was a period of time where I didn't want to be around anybody. I wanted to be by myself, and I needed that alone time just to heal, to get through my thoughts, to process things, shut out all the noise and chatter. And it really was for my own healing journey. It wasn't because there was a period in there, let's be honest, that I was going through some major depression. But when I was in the period where I just wanted to be left alone and I needed to just process things, it was really part of the healing journey to help give me perspective and to work through things myself so that I could then go out and get whatever help and support that I needed. And I could ask people for the type of help that I needed or whatever support I needed from them. So it gave me that opportunity to essentially find some clarity and start the journey of healing myself so that I was more open to receive, the support that I was really needing and ultimately what I needed back in for support. So don't feel bad about it. Everyone's got their own journey.
Exactly. Yeah. And the other thing is, along with that support system, is if you need professional help, get it. There's no shame in seeking professional help. So that's something I did not do. That looking back, of course, things were different in the 80s. I mean, they really were, and there was like a, I don't know, what do you call it, scarlet letter, put on kind of a shame thing of if you're seeing a shrink, now it's like, yes, I need a shrink. I would have gone to a shrink had I had access. And
absolutely,
but I didn't. Although I did seek spiritual guidance from a pastor type person. That did help. Mm-hmm. Okay, the next one, I kind of dealt with this one already, but number 6 was don't compare your grief with others. Don't say I shouldn't hang on to this grief because so and so has it so much worse. That's kind of a different angle of that other. But yeah. This person, or you talk to someone and they start comparing their grief. It's like, oh, well, that's nothing. Here's what I'm going through. And it's like, I know you're feeling pain, and that's not what I need to deal with right now, though. We need to.
You can empathize, you can sympathize, but literally everyone's grief journey is going to be different. I mean, even if I look at my grief journey in comparison to my mom or my sister's, with the loss of my dad. I mean, you can very clearly, when I go back and look, I can very clearly pinpoint which stage of the grief process everyone was in at a particular time. And every single one of us have taken a different approach to our healing journey and processing the grief and the loss. Like we all had the same experience, so to speak. We all lost someone we loved, like my sisters, we all lost our father, but our grief was completely different in how we handled it and how we processed it. I mean, completely different. And even our conversations about our grief and our experience of losing our dad, it's interesting to hear our stories and our perception and our perspective of that journey that we went on, because even though we all were there together, what we remember and the things that we took away from that experience is completely different.
Absolutely.
And it intrigues me because so many people think that, oh, well, I had the same experience and I went through, I was right there with you. And it's like, well, you were, but your experience was unique for you. You picked up on different things and experienced different things than what I did. And so even though we went through a similar experience or the same experience, our journeys are on a different path. And we have to learn how to embrace those journeys for ourselves because they were our unique journey for us to take.
It's interesting that you said that because my number 7 is, remember, we are all on our own personalized journey. There you go. And just backing up for me too, when my father passed away, it was kind of the same thing where it was very healing afterwards when we talked. And hearing the perspectives was amazing to me. That my older siblings were like kind of afraid of my dad. I was never afraid of my dad. He was tough. I mean, he was a military guy, and but anyway, it was amazing to me that they had this fear of my dad. It's like, you're scared of dad. But when we talked about it, we could see why. Oh, well, you were the youngest. You didn't have to do that.
Yes.
Anyway,
it opens up that dialogue.
So that was, which dialogue is so important. And any time you're grieving, I don't care what it is, there is a time for dialogue. It's something you can't push. You can't, but when it comes time, you'll know it, and to allow it to happen.
Allow it to happen, and embrace it, and cherish those moments when you have dialogue and you share the moments, or you share different perspectives or experiences or things like that, because you know what, those are memories you're going to hold on to. Those are things that are going to be important to you. Even the silliness of, well, dad was tougher on me than what else on you, and you got away with everything, and those conversations. And it's funny when you're in that moment, but it also gives you a different perspective. And it almost, like for me, like it always brings like the spirit of my dad around, and I can like envision him just kind of, laughing around all of us as we're talking about him, and, things of that nature. And it just brings a different element and a different perspective on him and his life and how he treated all of us and things like that. And not in a bad way by any means, but it just really kind of opens your eyes into the intricacies of a person that you don't always see. And you really get to know who they are from a different point of view. And it's I don't know, it's a really intriguing experience. It really is. Yeah.
And along with that too, I'm just going to read what I wrote here because I like it. It says, there's no right or wrong way to heal. Do what's right for you. Seriously, and that's what we're talking about. It's your own personal journey. Don't compare yourself with others. The last thing I have is to discover and nurture what brings you joy. That's a very personalized thing as well. You're on your personal journey. Part of that is finding what brings you joy, and that may vary at different times. I know, like after, before my daughter was born, and before, between that time period while I was pregnant with her, I got into needlepoint, and I made some beautiful things during that time period. Now that doesn't bring me joy anymore. I don't even want to think about doing needlepoint. I do other things. I write and whatever, but find something that brings you joy, and do that thing. Absolutely. And keep revising. Don't think you have to stick with one thing. But so that is the end of my I don't say end of the journey, but that was my healing process. And even now, all these years later, I still, when I think about it, I wonder what life would have been if I'd had those boys. And I love them. You know, I feel like
Mhm.
they're in heaven, their spirits are in heaven, and I'll be
Absolutely.
reunited with them. And yeah, that's my personal belief, and I'm good with that. But that doesn't mean that there's still times where I had that little pain in my heart of, oh, I wish they had it. It's all good. It's
Yeah.
all
And
good.
I
It's
think
okay
that's a
that
normal
I
experience. Oh, I
okay.
shouldn't say normal. Well, I guess you could say normal. I think most, I shouldn't say most because I haven't gone through it, but I would imagine that those that have gone through miscarriages, that they have a similar experience or perspective that they're in heaven and one day they're going to meet. And most definitely that, you know, they have those wonderings of what if they were here and how different life would be had their child, you know, had been actually, you know, been born and alive and, you know, things of that nature. So I think it's a common, I'm trying to think of the word, I guess a common occurrence is what I'm thinking of. So, but I think that's a really great, you know, a really great way to kind of end our interview for today and sharing your story. You went through and shared a lot. Any last bit of advice that you would like to impart to those that are tuning in that may be going through a similar experience, whether it be a miscarriage or going through grief, that you would like to share with the audience?
The last thing I like to say is just be kind to yourself. Let yourself go through whatever process you need to get through this and take it day by day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yes, you may look at a future thing and what you would love for things to look like, and that's important too. But let yourself go one step at a time. You know,
Mm-hmm.
don't push yourself. Don't try to run faster than you're able. It's okay. Wherever you
Mm-hmm.
are, it's okay. Just take a step forward, then take another step forward, take another step forward, and you will heal if you allow yourself to. And
Absolutely.
that's it.
Embrace
I
that
love
journey
you.
that you're on. No, that's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. So, thank you, Laura, for sharing your story about transforming your inner pain and how you've overcome all the adversities that you've had throughout your life with everything that, with your miscarriages and growing your family and that whole journey. I really do appreciate it. I know that was probably a really difficult topic for you to cover and to share. So I do appreciate from the bottom of my heart that you took a time to be able to share that with us and share that with everyone that's tuning in. So Laura's story is included in the upcoming anthology, Embracing the Journey. So if you really enjoyed her story and you want to dive into more of the details about her journey, definitely check out the anthology. The anthology will have over 10 brave women who share their stories of hope, healing, and how they have triumphed over adversity, which releases on July 15th. The Embracing the Journey ebook will also be a bonus to my next best-selling book, Transforming Inner Pain, which releases on July 22nd for anyone that decides to purchase the physical copy of the book. Both books will be available through Amazon and other online retailers. And if you would like, the Transforming Inner Pain is also available right now for pre-order, and you can check that out. So thank you so much for tuning in. It's been an amazing experience, and I loved you sharing your story. Thank you again, Laura, for joining us today. And for everyone else, make it a wonderful day, and we'll see you again next time. Bye.
Bye.